Hey guys, so I wanted to talk to you a little bit today about kind of more homesteading stuff in the sense of mentally preparing you for a homestead and for that life. And in respect more so to animals. So when you start a homestead, and I've done videos on this before, that literally death is a part of it. Animals are going to die. Animals are going to get old and die. Animals are going to get attacked and die. There is just all sorts of things that can happen on a homestead, no matter how um, well you manage things or how seasoned you are at this kind of thing or whatever the deal may be. Animals are going to die. And so, one of the things that, so like today, for example, and again, I've talked about some of this before, is one of our ducks died, and one of our girls found it out in the field. And from what it looks like, it died from old age. It was the mom of our original babies, and obviously, like the grandma of the ducklings, which are almost full grown now that we have. And when we got her, we had no idea how old she was. And Muscovy ducks live usually anywhere from 5 to 6 years. And we got her from a farm where she had already been making babies prior to this. So, again, we have no idea how old she was. She just was dead. And so something could have gotten her. But again, the looks of it, the way she was dead and what part of her was already like stiff slash eaten, the ants, you could tell it's mostly like ants that had eaten her, her head and her neck. And it definitely wasn't our dogs because of the type of injury basically that she had. Also, the two dogs that we currently do have out and about are not prone to hurting. They're actually incredibly good with bird type livestock. They're two of our two females. And again, the way this duck had been acting prior to us just now finding her kind of gave me the inclination that she might have been going, and we just didn't realize it because, you know, it's a duck. How do you realize a duck's getting ready to die? So one of the things that I've been seeing on a lot of like homesteading groups and stuff like that I'm on Facebook is people saying like, oh, I have too many roosters, trying to give roosters to a good home, or oh, I have too many of this, trying to give them to a good home, and stuff like that. And to me, it kind of frustrates me to a certain extent because, one, if you raise animals, you should also have a proper end plan for them. Whether it is sheep and they're going to go to the butcher, depending on what they are, ram, obviously you keep your ewes. You have your rams that help reproduce, and you have your rams that you eat. Same with your chickens. You have your roosters that help reproduce, and you have your roosters that you eat. Especially in the way of like dogs, if you have bred your dog at all, like we bred our dog Esther, I've done videos about it. We already knew there were homes for her puppies prior to them being born and prior to her being bred. And we also raised them to be good LGDs. Now, obviously, once we no longer have access to those dogs, it's up to the owners as to how well that dog continues to do. But the one puppy we did keep is still a fantastic LGD. So, with that being said, there's a certain mindset that you have to have when you go into homesteading. And it's funny because it's something that I've talked to my mom about, because I've been like, oh yeah, a duck died or a sheep died or, you know, our dog died from old age. And it sucks. And like, I'm not going to lie, when our dog Samson just died from old age, we cried. We had him for 8.5 years. It was sad. And I'm not going to say I'm like this cold, heartless person when it comes to our animals. We love our animals. But at the same time, they serve a purpose, and that purpose is either food or protection thereof. And I think a lot of times people go into homesteading as, oh, we're going to have these pets, and they're going to be a lot of fun, and we're going to just have eggs, and we're going to have dogs, and we're going to have sheep, and we're going to have all these things, and it's going to be fantastic, and then stuff starts dying. Or you get too many of something and you have no clue what the heck to do with them, and then you start posting about giving a rooster to a good home. I'm sorry, y'all, the roosters to a good home, those people who take those roosters are probably butchering them and eating them. Because I've seen people literally post on Facebook groups wanting to give a rooster to a good home, but don't want him to get butchered or eaten. What's the point of having a rooster then? Yes, there are some people who need roosters because their rooster may have died, or they didn't have roosters because they were initially just doing eggs and now they want to breed, so now they do need a rooster. So there is those situations where, you know, someone may need literally just a rooster. Like right now, we need 3 male rabbits to breed our females so that they can make, guess what, dog food. We feed our dogs, or try to feed our dogs, rabbits. That's why we have rabbits. We don't eat the rabbits, our dogs eat the rabbits. Again, we have an exit plan. We also, something else too, is people who people love chickens. And I'm not even gonna lie, it's so fun getting new chickens. It's so fun having chickens running all over the place and everything like that. But is there an exit plan if you have too many? So say you lose a job and now you can't afford the feed for all your chickens. Do you have an exit plan for those chickens? So yeah, you could sell them as like a breeding bunch to people, or you could do, or you could butcher them and eat them. But again, do you have those skills necessary in order to do that? And do you have the heart condition to be able to do that too? So that's the main thing I want to talk about, because it's more so, it frustrates me when I see people come into homesteading and they do not have the mindset of being able to do anything with the animals, past the point of just having pets. And again, there's nothing wrong with that necessarily if you want a hobby farm, but at the same time, there's a certain point where you're mismanaging your animals, and at that point, it becomes wrong. Again, if you can't afford to feed your animals, again, and like to say the instance of the chickens, say you lose a job, just say someone loses their job and now you can't feed your chickens. You have to have an exit strategy for these animals. These animals rely on you for food. And yes, all our chickens are free range, but guess what? We got 5 roosters that are coming up from our teenage flock. They're going to meet the crock pot. If something happened to mine or my husband's job where we could only feed, say, 5 hens at a time, guess what? We know how to butcher our chickens. We know how to process them and everything else. And we would butcher all our chickens to where we only had 5 hens and a rooster or whatever. We would butcher them to the point of being able to sustain them and take care of them. Same thing with, that's why we have rabbits. God forbid, well, one, dog food is just awful in general. It causes cancer in dogs. Everybody knows that. But outside of that is if we can't feed our dogs because something has happened to where we can't get dog food, that's why we need the male rabbits. Rabbits are an amazing source of food for dogs. It's literally the best kind of food you can feed your dogs. However, again, you have to have a strategy for this. And right now we have 9 female rabbits that obviously aren't producing any babies right now. And so they are a feed bill, literally just a feed bill. But if it came to the point where we couldn't afford that feed bill anymore, and they barely eat anything, so it's not a big deal to have them. But if we got to the point we couldn't afford them, guess what? We'd be butchering them down to what we could afford. And then, only have 3 breeding rabbits or something like that. So that's kind of what I guess I'm trying to share at this is, do you have an exit strategy for your animals? Do you have the mental capacity and capability to do what you need to do to properly manage these animals? Because again, these animals, the rabbits, now we could just let the rabbits go. Rabbits, that's no problem. Granted, they'd probably be eaten by owls or coyotes or something like that. It's wild, and these are not typically wild rabbits, obviously. So they're not necessarily going to have as good of instincts as wild rabbits, potentially. But those are things we have thought of. So it's one of the things that when you're getting into homesteading, you have to think about that. And if you want just pets, that's fantastic. But at the same time, you have to properly manage them and such. Don't get so many that you can't feed them. Don't get so many that you can't properly manage them. Don't get so many that it becomes a burden on you and your household. And now you're trying to figure out if you're feeding yourself and your family, or you're feeding your chickens, dogs, cats, whatever it may be. Like, it could be any kind of animal, horses, cattle, sheep, it doesn't matter. Again, for example, like with us right now, we have about 11 rams that need to be butchered. Praise Yah, we have 11 rams that need to be butchered. That's a heck of a lot of meat. But at the same time, we have the property that can sustain 11 rams plus all the ewes and everything else. And again, most of these rams are young. They're less than a year old. We only have 4 adult rams. So, and again, those rams are going to get butchered too, because we want to keep some of the younger ones. But again, exit strategy, and being able to afford that exit strategy, and having the time for exit strategies. That's something that my husband and I have talked about recently, because we have all those rams. We don't have the time to butcher all of them, but we know how to butcher them. We absolutely know how to butcher a ram. But at the same time, we don't have the time currently to sit down and butcher. We don't have the cooler space to chill for 11 rams. So what are we doing? We're going to pay a butcher to do so. And then we just get the meat back. We pay the butchering fee and we get the meat back. Yay, it works out. But again, still being able to afford that. So my husband and I have calculated that out. We know how much we need. We know when we're going to be able to have that saved up and have them and get them butchered before it starts getting really cold and the grass stops growing. And that way, again, proper management, grass isn't growing as much. We don't do hay because we don't have to, because we have enough grass for even the sheep we have now. All of them, we have enough grass. But if we get the 11 rams that we technically don't need butchered, then the sheep we still want to keep will have more grass in the leaner time of year. So again, proper management, thinking ahead for that, planning ahead seasonally for the animals you do have, especially if you live in a place with seasons like we do here. In Florida, it's not as big of a deal where we're from, because Florida, you have grass year round. Up here in Oklahoma, we don't necessarily have the grass year round. So that's just really something. I'm trying to give you examples so you have something to think about as you're like, okay, I want chickens, I want sheep, I want the livestock guardian dogs, I want the cats, I want all the stuff that comes with a homestead. But you have to think about the back end, and the back end of the homestead, and what that looks like and how you're going to manage it. Because again, just as much as there is of homesteading, there is just as much, like the fun side of homesteading, the growing your own food, the having your own animals and everything else. There's just as much of it that is taking care of these animals and properly managing them and making sure that you're doing right by these animals and raising them well, and raising them, not just well, but properly, healthfully, things like that. And again, if you need to put them down or butcher them, that you have the mental capacity to do that, because you can't be getting into a livestock situation and be like, nope, I can't ever kill an animal. It doesn't work, guys. What if you have an animal that's lame and you have to kill it because it can't get up and now it's going to literally die a horrible suffering death? We've had to do that before. We've had to put down sheep that have gone lame. You either put it down or it suffers for days. You put it down, so you put it out of its misery. So make sure that when you're getting into that situation where you're getting into the livestock, raising animals and everything else, that you have the mindset and the heart condition enough to be able to have the end of the animal's life happen, and that it is okay, that you don't mind it. Again, it sucks when animals die, but at the same time, you have to have the right mind condition about it. Otherwise, like I said, a duck died today. One of our LGDs died from old age a few weeks ago. Gosh, we've had how many sheep die from old age since we've moved here? Probably 4. And over the course of the decades we've had sheep, we've had probably close to 100 sheep die, either from old age or butchering or whatever. So things to think about, guys, things to realize and remember and understand, that this is the way things work when you're on a homestead, that you have to build up that heart condition. If you don't have that heart condition, that's totally fine. That's a-okay. But make sure that you only have as many animals as you can properly manage. Otherwise, you're mismanaging animals, and you don't want animals suffering because you can't manage them properly. So I just wanted to share that with you guys, something to think about. If you have any questions about managing animals or anything like that, or what it's like to be a part of that end process of an animal's life, put it in the comments below. I'm happy to help. Hope you all have a great day.